Classical Conversations presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortons, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Welcome back to another episode of Refining Rhetoric. Today we're exploring the intersection of faith, leadership, and education with Dr. Michael Lindsay from Taylor University in Indiana. He's a distinguished leader in academic excellence. He holds a PhD in sociology from Princeton University and has authored several influential books, including Faith in the Halls of Power and Hinge Moments. And of course, we just had an election not too long ago, and I'm sure that might be a hinge moment in our history. We'll see. But he talks about how Christian principles can shape leaders in today's world, which I believe is much needed. He homeschooled his three daughters for a while with classical conversations. He's been married to his college sweetheart, Rebecca, for over 25 years. Dr. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
Michael, how did you get into this faith-based journey and seeing how Christian principles should really make us better leaders, and why is that important?
I spent the first decade or so in higher education at Research One institutions like Princeton, and then I was a faculty member at Rice. And while I was a faculty member at Rice, I just became convinced that I wanted my life to be holistic and to be able to support the values and the virtues that my wife and I were hoping that our girls would develop in my students. And while I was blessed to have, some extraordinary Christian students at Princeton and Rice, and was grateful for the chance to be a witness in that particular environment, I just decided if I'm going to be spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week working in this important calling, I wanted it to be something I could really believe in. And so in 2011, I received a call to serve as the president of Gordon College, a Christian liberal arts college on Boston's North Shore, and served there for a decade. And then I came to work here at Taylor in the American Midwest. And it's been just an extraordinary experience. Rebecca, my wife, and I feel deeply called to the work of Christian education. And it started with our girls being exposed to these ideas through classical conversations, and it's continued all the way through. So I'm a big believer in what we're trying to do in helping to shape the next generation. It's my hope that all of our graduates will go out and be salt and light in a variety of different opportunities to serve and to bless our friends and neighbors. And at the same time, I think there's great value. Faith grows the best in the context of wider faith.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I are both blessed to work in Christian education. But I think both of us have hopes that, we will launch students into the secular world. So what are some of the things that you've learned that can help a student, thrive once they're, employed or maybe working at a place that doesn't value their faith like the rest of us?
Well, I think it's very important to cultivate in young people spiritual disciplines, things that are practices that they do on a daily, weekly, annual basis. So we work really hard at Taylor to try and help our students to develop a life of prayer and for them to have spiritual disciplines as part of their regular routine. If they go to the gym to work out, we also want them to have spiritual disciplines. That, I think, serves them well. We believe in the value of Christian community, so we urge all of our students to get plugged into a local church and to not just go, but to actually serve and to be engaged in that way. I think young adulthood's a tough time because you go from a context where you've been surrounded by friends in a great residential community, and then you go to work and you're like, who do I have dinner with? And who do I take a walk around the block with? Those kinds of things can be a bit of a challenge. So Christian community can help be a ballast for young people as they find themselves getting settled. Everyone's going to be tested or challenged in one way or another, but it's helpful to have support and encouragement. So small groups, Bible studies, even an accountability partner can all be great things cultivated through these spiritual disciplines that serve students well over the long haul.
Mm. How does Taylor cultivate some of these spiritual disciplines? Like, what will they see there versus maybe what they would see at a secular liberal arts school?
We're really excited by the results we got in our most recent student survey of graduating seniors and their parents. 93% of them said that their time at Taylor helped them deepen in their engagement with Scripture, which of course is music to our ears. It's something we really want to help cultivate that. But it occurs in the context of relationships. So we believe it's very important for our faculty and staff to not just mentor students in the classroom or as advisors, but to be part of their lives. 1 Thessalonians 2:8 says, we're delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well, because you become so dear to us. So that's the kind of community that we work to develop. So when I'm hiring faculty to come and join us, I'm asking, tell me about the ways in which you want to mentor our students. And I'm looking for folks who are all in, fully committed to doing that. And the results really speak for themselves. So at Taylor, our students have a chance to be part of a variety of spiritual practices on a daily or weekly basis, but it's not forced upon them. We're not a rigid place. Our chapel is not required, but it is packed every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I love that there's just a sense that students really want to be here and they want to go deep in their faith.
Here in the U.S., we have a loneliness epidemic, and they say it can even take years off of your life. How is Christian community like the antidote to that?
I think COVID really exacerbated a lot of the trends that we saw with anxiety, depression, loneliness, and fear. And so that helps us to get some clues as to what are the antidotes to addressing it. And I do think friendships make a huge difference. Spiritual friendship has been a hallmark of the church for 2,000 years. So we need to create environments where people can develop really good friends, shared experiences, shared hobbies, but also where we can be intentional about not letting folks drop off. So universities that are thriving today are ones that have layers of support, not to be sort of in loco parentis, but instead to say, hey, we want to just make sure that there's not anybody who falls through the cracks. So you have faculty that are paying attention not just to academic performance, but also, do students show up in class? Do they seem engaged? You have people in residence life who are saying, hey, do they seem to be hanging out with friends? Are they engaged in the activities? We've got folks in student life who are just looking around to see who's sitting alone at the meals and how do we make sure that they sort of get connected. All of these are part of an intentional strategy that really says we want every single student to thrive. We recognize that not every student who wants to come to Taylor ends up being a good fit. It's a highly selective university, so we're trying to find the right people. But our philosophy is that if you're admitted to Taylor, we want you to graduate from Taylor. We want you to thrive. And I have to believe that my colleagues in a variety of Christian institutions feel the same way, that they really want every single student to thrive while they're there. So that's the difference you get in Christian education. I can't really speak to what's happening in the wider higher education marketplace, but in communities of faith, I can say we're all in and we really want to be able to support our students to thrive over the long haul.
I love it. We just had an election and a change of parties. And, a lot of times people say, don't talk about faith or politics in public, that these are private ideas and things that we should keep to ourselves. Do you agree with that sentiment or not?
No, I don't agree with that sentiment. I think that there's an admonition starting from the creation mandate that we get to help make something of the world in Genesis 1 all the way through to the last chapter of Revelation. So I think Scripture admonishes the faithful to be actively involved as agents of renewal in their communities. Jeremiah 29, seek the peace and the prosperity of the place where you've carried, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. I mean, these are biblical mandates. Now, I don't believe that the kingdom of God is going to come riding in on Air Force One. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in, certain things happening because somebody's in the White House or somebody's in power or in control. I have seen as a leader of a Christian institution that we can thrive when Republican administrations are in power and when Democratic administrations are in power. And I've also seen that there are challenges that have come from all parties and how they lead. So there's no perfect solution, but I really believe that our students need to be engaged in public issues. Now, that doesn't mean that we should just parrot the conflicts and the division that we see on social media. In fact, we've worked really hard at Taylor to say there's a lot more that unites us than divides us. So let's focus on that, even in a contentious political season. But I'm actually kind of encouraged. I was with a group of Christian college presidents a couple of weeks ago, and we were just talking how the 2024 election has felt qualitatively different than what we experienced in 2020, in 2016, or going even further back. it feels like that we might actually be at an inflection point, or what I call a hinge moment. And that's actually encouraging. I certainly would like us to be in a place where we can find ways to work together, even across our differences.
Now, in your works, Faith in the Halls of Power, you researched how faith and leadership intersect, and how are you seeing that in leadership now? Are you seeing that more leaders, whether it's higher education or across politics, are willing to embrace Christianity and talk about their faith, or do we still see a shying away from that?
Well, I think that what we're seeing is that there's a sharp polarization on matters of faith. It used to be that there was sort of a latent Christianity that you would see among institutional leaders. And today you don't find that. There are many, many institutional leaders who sort of have moved away from matters of faith, and they're kind of antagonistic to faith matters. But then you also have a remnant of folks who I'd say are really seriously committed to their faith. I know a number of Fortune 500 CEOs who are deeply committed evangelical Christians, praying daily, reading scripture. They're really trying to lead well. And that's tough to do in a complex environment with lots of volatility and uncertainty. But there are people who are really trying to honor the Lord. And so I try to bring those folks to my campus so students can get inspired. And I love the fact that Bob Wright, who's the CEO of Potbelly Sandwiches, one of the fastest growing fast casual restaurant businesses on the planet, is also committed to God, and he wants to honor the Lord. He doesn't force all of his employees to convert to his faith, but he wants to lead in a way of having a faithful presence that's not just sort of latent, but is actually shaping who he is as a leader. And I love the fact that he's an example I can hold up to our students. And I hope that there are many more Bob Wrights in the days ahead.
Yeah, I've been kind of part of a faith and work movement led by an organization called the C12 Group that gets CEO roundtable, like kind of once a month to have a dialectic discussion and share Christian curriculum. Do you see more leaders of businesses willing to step out and share their faith over the last 5 or 10 years, and how have you seen that transformation?
Well, I love C12. I think it's a great initiative, and there's a whole host of different things. YPO, for example, has a vision values kind of forum that's been an area of good support. There's a number of those different sort of networks that I think are great to help be able to encourage and support. Many people in the marketplace need folks to come alongside them and encourage them. And it can happen at the CEO level, but can it also happen at, everybody's level. And I love that there's more openness to figuring out how faith shapes people's lives, and it's helping make workplaces better. Now, I think that over the last 25, 30 years, there's a recognition that while you may come to be a flight attendant for Southwest Airlines or to be a teacher in Detroit Public Schools, you also are a whole person. You bring a whole range of issues or experiences, commitments, and backgrounds. And so the workplaces that are thriving are ones that say, hey, we want you to be your whole self. We don't want you to feel like you've got to parcel out who you are. And so people of faith are finding there's opportunity. It's really occurring in the context of what are known as workplace affinity groups. So just as corporate America began having support networks for cancer survivors or for families who were in the process of adoption, so also there have become Bible studies and prayer groups that have sprung up saying we want to be able to support people in a whole host of different parts of their lives. And so that gives me real hope and encouragement. I didn't know a whole lot about this space until I worked on Faith in the Halls of Power, but then since then I've had a chance to see it up close. And I'd say it's encouraging to see ways in which faith can make a positive difference in the marketplace and the public square.
Hey everyone, this is a little annoying part where we have to break into the episode and tell you about some of the stuff going on, but this is super exciting. You're going to want to pay attention to this. Are you looking to become a better everyday educator? Join other homeschool parents in your area at a 2025 Practicum event. Hosted by a local classical conversations leader, every summer, these parent conferences provide an opportunity for new and experienced homeschool parents or parents thinking about homeschooling to gather, learn, and practice the classical arts. At this year's Practicum, you can practice the 15 skills of learning, and we're thrilled to begin using content from our brand new curriculum, the Math Map. We'll use the dimensional structure of mathematics to frame questions and find patterns to see the unseen. Sound confusing? You'll be surprised at how this approach works. This is a discussion for all ages to grow our classical education skills together. Participate in table talk discussion with other parents and learn how to engage your own students in the math conversation that transcends the ages. Discover how the classical skills of learning and the dimensional structure of mathematics helps us see and frame questions, find patterns, enables us to see the unseen and better understand God and our universe. To find out where your local Practicum meets, just visit ccpracticum.com. That's ccpracticum.com. Now let's get back to the show. Yeah, I think, everyone's going to serve in the marketplace. You saw Jesus, many of his miracles were in the marketplace. There's not people, at least at not our church, not a whole lot of random people walking in on a typical Sunday morning, although praise God when that does happen, but they'll come into your business and interact with you. So, I think it's a powerful opportunity for, God has given, people different talents, whether you're a business owner or middle management or that frontline worker to impact people in a way that glorifies him and brings, you might be the only time they ever get to experience Jesus and be able to take that opportunity more seriously.
Yep.
So how do you all, like for parents of, younger kids, maybe preparing for college, how can they get their kids in this mindset so when they come to a school like Taylor, they're able to, continue on that path of being bold Christians for Christ?
Well, let me say, we love classical conversation. So if there is any parent that's thinking about sending their kids to Taylor, we hope that they'll check it out. We would love it. If the Lord's calling their son or daughter to be here, we'd love for them to be here. And the thing I really appreciate, the reason my wife and I believed in this homeschool curriculum is that it holds together both values and commitments and virtue that we want to cultivate in our daughters, but also academic excellence. And it draws upon the rich tradition of education. It's interesting. I was in Germany a couple of summers ago and had a chance to go to Aachen, where Charlemagne founded the Palace School, the first secondary school in the world in the early 9th century. And it's an amazing thing to see how Christians have been part of the educational task for over 1,000 years and really committed to that. So we feel like at Taylor, we're part of a tradition that goes back a very long time, but we're excited about being on the cutting edge. In addition to offering great liberal arts education in history or literature or philosophy or biblical studies, we also believe that there's great opportunity in mechanical engineering and in economics, in marketing, and in biology. All of these become areas where our students can have greater influence. So we offer, 125, 130 different academic programs. Students can study majors, minors, concentrations. And we even have a program where students can design their own major if they have particular interests. All of this is because we believe that there is a real commitment to all truth is God's truth. So we're interested from the arts to zoology, A to Z. We want the truth of Christ to inform and shape how we undertake the academic enterprise. And it's been great to be able to see some good accomplishments. Just this year, Taylor was named into the Princeton Review of Best Colleges and Universities, and we were ranked number 3 in the country for happiest student body. And we realized number 1 and 2 is propped up basically by a lot of alcohol in their culture. I'd say we're doing really, really well at Taylor. And I'm excited about having a vibrant campus community where students really, really thrive. They're engaged and joyful, and they're learning every single day.
Well, since you brought that up, so how does, typically those colleges that are happiest, like you said, have big football programs and all of these secular things. So, how can Christian leaders engage with young people in a way that they're having fun, that they're being happy without kind of resorting to the world's way of things?
Well, I think you can still have a great football program and be a thriving Christian university. So far, our team is 8-2 and had a great season. So athletics and the arts are a part of the university experience, and we love it. So we want all of our students to be engaged. And whether it's as a varsity athlete, we have, 17, 18 varsity sports, Or we have an amazing intramurals program. Princeton Review also said we were number 8 in the country for intramurals. So we have a lot of fun at Taylor. What can I say? I love that about the institutional culture. Not every Christian institution is that way. And I'd say you have to get a sense of the personality of the place. So spend a Friday or a Saturday night on the campus and just see what it's like. You really learn a place if you're there on a Friday or Saturday night. Admissions counselors have gone home for the weekend. Faculty members are not, teaching you in class, but you get a chance to see what are the students like? What are the activities like? And once you are there, you really get a feel for the place. And I found that to be true at Taylor and a whole host of other institutions. We believe that you can have a lot of fun and glorify the Lord. Now, we have antics and pranks and all those kind of things on our campus, but even those can be some elements of good-hearted fun.
Absolutely. To follow up on that, like, do you have weekends, or do you have, if people want to visit Taylor, is there a best time to do it, or do they have to register or just show up? Like, how can, because seeing is believing.
Seeing is believing. You got that exactly right. We hold a series of events over the course of the academic year called 24 at Taylor. And you can just Google it and find it on our webpage. You do have to register for it because we find a student to host the student to spend the night. Mom and dad are welcome to come and experience. We just had one this past week, and they're really, really popular. We'll have, several hundred people that'll be here on one of those 24s at Taylor. And that's a good chance to sort of get an introduction to the place. Then we encourage students to come back and to get a chance to know some more faculty in the areas where they're interested, maybe have a chance to check out a sporting event or go to a play or a musical, and to soak up the culture. But I think you kind of have to do that. One of the things I'll say as a bit of unsolicited advice to parents is that we live in a day and age that because of the Common App, students will apply to a crazy number of schools. There is no reason to apply to 20 schools. You can't possibly even keep straight in your mind the pluses and minuses of different schools. So I have a couple of simple rules of thumb that are useful. You can apply up to 10 schools, but really you need to figure out by mid-fall, what are the 5 schools you're really interested in? And you need to narrow that down to 3 schools by Thanksgiving. And we always say that by Christmas, you figure out what is your top school you want to go to. Now, you may say, well, I want to go to Harvard, Stanford, Princeton. Well, the problem with that is that their admissions process is idiosyncratic. I know this. I studied it. Robert Klickgard, political scientist, wrote a book called Selection at the Right Tail of a Normal Curve of the Distribution. You cannot predict who gets in. When I was at Princeton, I was in a cohort of 10 people, and I had classmates who had applied to many of the same schools. 2 people got into Columbia, 3 people got rejected by Columbia. 1 person applied to Stanford, 4 people got into Stanford. I mean, it's just interesting to see. You can't really predict that. But if you can identify a solid school that you think you're interested in by Christmas, then you just tell the admissions counselor, hey, you're my top school, and if we can find a way to make it work financially, I will be there. And I think that that's very compelling because we all have discretionary financial aid, and every one of us is incentivized to try and land a incoming class that wants to be at our school. So you don't want to give financial aid to somebody who's not going to come. If you've got a student who tells you, yeah, I really want to be there, and I'm going to be there if you make a way for it to work financially, we're motivated to try and figure out how to make that happen. And all that money is gone usually by the end of February. So if a student comes to me in April and says, hey, President Lindsay, I really want to be there, I said, well, we'd love to have you, but we've given away almost all the discretionary financial aid. So you got to sort of narrow your choices earlier. If you do that, no more than 10 applications, narrow it down to 5 by mid-fall, 3 by Thanksgiving, and 1 place by Christmas. You do that, you're guaranteed to wind up in a good spot in a competitive college admissions process.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have, like you said, just you have opportunities, and being forthright with the admissions process is a great idea, because I think a lot of parents, especially if they have their oldest, they haven't been through the process and what are those mechanics and how to get it to work. I know I had my top school. I applied early admissions. I got in early. They had specific scholarships and different opportunities if you were willing to kind of commit early, and it worked out really well for me. I also had to write significantly less amount of essays, because I wasn't trying to get into 10 different schools. I got into my first choice. But we do know that we have a kind of a changing demographic. We've heard of this idea, this college cliff in 2025, where there's, just because there weren't kids born during the last recession, or as many as needed, that there's not going to be like a million less students applying for college or some really high number like that, I've heard. Besides having a fun campus and having an academic rigorous campus, like, what should parents be looking out for to make sure that they're not sending their kids to somewhere that might be about to close, or making sure that they're leveraging, this unique opportunity to reduce debt and make sure that their kids are getting into a place that's really going to build them up instead of tear them down?
It's a good, fair question. American higher education is really a tale of two institutions, those that are barely surviving and those that are thriving. And I'd say there's a growing number of institutions that are just barely surviving. So you can look at that by looking at their financial measures. Almost all of us report our 990s to the IRS, and guidestar.org is a place where you can see that. You can just get an understanding of looking at their financials. Most places are having declining revenues and have been doing that for a long time. Most places are also have pretty weak philanthropy. There's some schools that are doing extraordinarily well. We raised $138 million last year, but lots
Wow.
of places are not doing very well. So you want to look at some of those kind of basic measures and ask questions. Tell me about your overall discount rate. This is the figure. If you pay $100,000 for a college education and you discount it at 52,000 or 52%, it means that they've taken $52,000 off the price tag. Well, the higher the discount rate, the more concerning it is that there are not enough students who want to be at that institution. So you have to look at those kind of measures. But all of those, you can just get a story about, is the institution just barely making it, or is it actually thriving? And I think getting a chance to experience it, going a chance to meeting a few administrators, most university presidents participate in those campus visit days. So it gives you a chance to just pull them aside and say, hey, tell me about what's your financial measures, or how are things looking. All of us are required to report what's called a composite financial index. Every university in America is scored from 0 to 10. And we got a perfect 10 this past fiscal year. We haven't done it in the past, but we're really excited about that. But that's an example of where you can see if somebody is scoring on that, 2 or 3 on a scale of 10, that probably indicates they're facing some challenges. You might want to look at that more carefully. Also, I'll just say the financial picture is not the only one, because we're not for-profit businesses. So we might end the year with a margin of 2 or 3%, but we're not going to have profit margins of 17, 18%. In fact, if we do, it probably suggests we're gouging our students in ways that we shouldn't. So you really want to think about, how can you find the right kind of institution? It's really a matter of just asking some good questions and getting to know the places a little bit better.
That's great. And I kind of always assume that if the alumni enjoyed it, they're going to give back in some meaningful way. So I think philanthropy is a great way to judge that. And yeah, I know behind the scenes, a recent college that went under, I think they were discounting about 80% off their tuition price. So, that wasn't a very sustainable model.
Right. And I'll say you have to specifically ask about what's called the unfunded discount rate, because Harvard has a high discount rate, but it's a funded discount rate through their endowment. So that's the key thing you're looking for, is unfunded discount rate. And probably the institution that was discounting at 80% and then went under, they didn't have it as a funded discount rate. So that makes things really challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good for parents to know. What would you say is the number one thing that stands out at Taylor that students choose that over a different Christian liberal arts program?
Well, I would say we've done a lot of research, and actually it's not one thing, but it's three things that we do exceptionally well. One is that we have a really robust, intentional Christian community. We're very explicit about who we are. All of our faculty, staff, and students are committed Christians. We have a set of foundational documents that everybody has to affirm to come here. And that has a way of sort of making sure you've got the right people. Number two, this is a place that for a long time, one of the oldest Christian universities in the world, have a real commitment to excellence. And that's true in academic outcomes. For the last 10 years in a row, 100% of our pre-med students have gone to medical school. I don't think there's many universities in the world that can claim that. Our retention rate is on par with half of the Ivy League schools. So these are really, really good indicators of excellence. And it's not just true in the classroom, but it's also true in athletics, where we have cross-country teams that are vying for a national championship this year, or our performing arts program, where our theater program routinely gets regional and national awards. So excellence is a key part of who we are. But we also have a lot of fun. This is a really vibrant campus community. We're located in the cornfields of Indiana, so students have to make up their own fun. But unlike other campuses, our students don't leave on the weekends. They want to be here. They love this place. They have so many activities and engagements, and you get a real feel for that. The energy on our campus is palpable for anybody who comes here. So those three things: intentional Christian community, real commitment to excellence, and a lot of fun. It's a winning combination that allows Taylor to stand apart in a competitive marketplace.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Can you give us the websites one more time and social media if people want to connect with you or the university and learn more about it?
Would love it. Yeah, we're Taylor, TAYLOR.edu, and you can follow me on social media. I'm at DMichaelLindsay altogether on Twitter or Instagram. Would love to have some more followers and stay in touch. We love classical conversations. I sing the Timeline song all the time, and really grateful for this amazing curriculum that actually made a profound impact on our girls and our family, and excited to be able to see all the ways the Lord is using this to make a deeper impact. So thanks for the good work that you guys are doing.
Well, and thanks for the good work you all are doing. It's great to have institutions we can feel comfortable sending our kids to, because so many of them have been degraded, and we appreciate you keeping Taylor on the straight and narrow. So go check it out. If you've got a rising junior or senior, I definitely encourage you to go to one of those 24 events and have them check it out. And it's good to be in a place where kids can't get in trouble. So cornfields of Indiana, it's beautiful country out there. So thank you so much for being on today's show. Definitely go give them a follow on X. I think I follow you on X. If not, I'll go do it right after the show.
Thank you.
Give me a follow, The Robert B. Show. Follow the Refining Rhetoric podcast. And until next time, God bless.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortons. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation, and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.